Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scourge of War Waterloo, Episode 4. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the scenario Papelotte. It's another 30-minute brigade scenario. Again, this is not a very difficult scenario. It's introducing another concept that was put into Scourge of War Waterloo, which is basically the ability to garrison farmhouses, churches, other types of buildings, and how we're going to attack those positions and drive the enemy out and then occupy those buildings ourselves. So that's pretty much what this scenario is meant to introduce to the player. Just like Emperor's Plan was basically to introduce skirmishers and how they work, this scenario is basically meant to introduce that concept of attacking garrisoned buildings like churches or farmhouses or whatever. They all kind of work the same way. So basically, it starts at noon, kind of shortly before Derlan's assault, the main kind of early morning or early afternoon attack on Wellington Center by Derlan's First Corps. And this scenario kind of precedes that by a few minutes, just trying to secure the farmhouse of Papelotte, which is on Derlan's right flank. So we're basically trying to secure that to in preparation for Derlan's assault. So yeah, it starts at 12 p.m. and it says, through the ever-increasing fog of artillery smoke, a sparse cluster of farm buildings and houses sits quietly to our front. The veterans of our brigade know well what to expect when we are ordered forward. Those passive-looking buildings will erupt with deadly musket fire coming from every portal and window. It will be a costly endeavor. It always is when the enemy fights from the shadows. Regardless of the peril, we are the right flank. We must crush the enemy's left or face defeat and dishonor. It's not quite as difficult as that is making it sound. The buildings are garrisoned by relatively low quality troops. They're, Nassau Dutch troops, and most of them are troop qualities of 4 and 5. Relatively low quality troops, kind of one step above militia, really. So I have very little respect for them, and I pretty much attack them head on, because I'm pretty confident that my troops are of higher troop quality. But they are garrisoned in the buildings, so that does give them advantage. And we're going to talk about some strategies on how to speed up the process of getting a garrison force to run out of the building and basically flee for their lives. So let's get the video going here. And that's basically what we have to do. We have to clear the enemy from the farmhouses of Papelotte, secure them ourselves, and then just hold them till the end of the scenario. And there's 2 farmhouses. We have, I think, 4 battalions, so we'll put 2 in the left one, 2 in the right one. And we need 500 points for a major victory. It's not that hard to achieve because the victory, the objective is worth something like 150 points a minute. So we really don't have to hold them for long. And I'm just going to bring the sound up a little bit here, just so you guys can kind of hear the game as well. We'll leave it right there. I don't want it to be too loud because I want you to be able to hear my voice. I had it muted at the beginning because I had the music on when I originally recorded this video. Since then, I've learned how to shut the music off completely. So here is our courier, and he's going to give us our orders here. And our commander is Marshal de Camp Jean-Louis Brou. Okay, so it says, begin your attack on the Allied left. Clear the enemy from all the buildings and concealments to your front. Once secured, hold the farmhouse complex and await further orders. So pretty straightforward. We just have to go forward, drive the enemy from these 2 farmhouses at Papelotte, and basically occupy them ourselves, and just hold on to them. Not that difficult. So we have an artillery battery. They are not under our control, but they're in a good spot to start bombarding the farmhouses. And as you can see, some Dutch, Nassau, whatever troops. I always get my nationalities confused, but I believe they're Dutch Nassau troops, and they're heading into the fort, and we're going to start marching on it here. And this artillery battery is going to start firing on it. And you can see some more troops coming in from the right, and one of them is going to just kind of head for the fort, and we're going to kind of intercept it, and the other one is going to kind of stop, and we're just going to go get them. Like I said, these Dutch Nassau troops are of somewhat low quality. You know, our troops aren't amazing either, but I think they're better than the Dutch Nassau troops. And we're just going to go and pretty much hit them head on. Our guns are opening. They're starting to bombard the farmhouses. You can see over in the distance there some more Dutch Nassau troops. They're going to be intercepted by this other French brigade coming in on our left here. We don't have control of them. They're kind of like our allies. They're under the AI's control, but they do pretty good work in this scenario, in this playthrough. I've had them be useless, and I've had them be superheroes, and in this playthrough, they're pretty much superheroes. So they're going to interrupt those, they're going to intercept those Dutch Nassau troops before they ever really become a problem for us. So these guys sitting right here in column, they're just begging to be attacked. So I am going to take one of my battalions and kind of just head right for them. These other guys, they're trying to snake down through this trail here and get to the farmhouse as quickly as possible. And I don't think they make it. I think we intercept them before they can actually get into the farmhouse. Meanwhile, I'm going to start setting my other two battalions in front of the farmhouses to start shooting at them. One of the things I've noticed about garrison buildings like this, the more sides of the building that you can bring fire to bear upon, the faster it seems that the troops inside want to break. So if you can, actually get fire on 2 or 3 sides of a fortified building, you'll be able to speed up the process of actually shooting your enemy out of there, because you can't actually go into a fort while there's enemy troops in there. Like, you can't melee them. You can't just give them the bayonet charge in there. You actually have to stand outside the fort and just shoot at them until they break and run. Fortified buildings like this, where you're able to garrison, are actually a very strong defensive position. So if they actually had some good quality troops in here, this would be a problem, because they would, not be likely to break if they were good quality troops, and they'd be in an excellent defensive position. As it is at the beginning here, we're going to take some losses, just because they're shooting at us from inside the fort while we're trying to move into position. Kind of unavoidable. But as you see, these troops are not high quality, and they want to break. They're not going to stand there for long once you start firing on them. And these guys, they're about to get caught in column. I can't believe they stood there in column for this long, because now I'm in assault column and I'm just bum rushing them. And they're gonna, at the very last second here, they're gonna try and form line, and it's too late. I can't believe they sat here in column for this long. Nope, too late, fellas. You are not gonna be able to get a shot off before you get charged here. You guys waited too long, and this is not. They're gonna run, and they got caught while they were trying to form line, and they got hit with the full force of that bayonet charge. And I'm not actually out to try and rout those guys and send them running from the field. Really, I just want them out of the way. They were kind of sitting there on my right flank, and I'm never comfortable trying to push forward with enemy units on my flank. As you can see, there is a Dutch unit moving in on my left flank now of this unit, and I'm actually going to have to give up this position temporarily just because these guys are on my flank. And if they start shooting into my flank, my units can take a big morale hit and some heavy casualties pretty quickly. But we've broken one of the Dutch Nassau units, and they're running back. And as soon as my units are done shooting at them, we'll start moving them into a position they could be more useful. And really, what I'm trying to do here is just get some fire going on this fort, and hoping that this other French brigade on my left here moves in to occupy these, you know, to basically give it to these Dutch guys that they're now turning their back to. But they don't seem to be moving quite yet, so I have to again shift my position so I'm not being fired on in the flank. So this big unit I have here in the center, they're doing okay. They've inflicted 6 casualties and they've taken 8 casualties, so it's a little tough to you know, get the better of it when you have to shoot at these garrisons. If there weren't so many other line troops out here and making me have to continually shift my position, you know, I might deploy some skirmishers and, you know, actually try and surround more of the farmhouses here. But you know, they have a unit in between both farmhouses at the moment, so I'm not really going to be able to do that anyway. So really what I'm trying to do right here is just get all my units into a good firing position where they're actually able to all shoot at the garrison. I'm not necessarily too concerned with actually getting the best of it. I just want to start getting as much fire going as I can, because I'm more relying on the fact that these are low quality troops that we're shooting at, and I'm expecting them to break. You know, even if they're killing maybe more of my men than I am of theirs, you know, I'm trying to get them to run out of the fort, because if they run out of the fort and we can occupy the objective, points-wise, that's going to more than make up for any losses that we may be taking right now. And as you can see, the Dutch unit there that was being such a pain in the butt by being on my flank, I turned and faced them and shot a few rounds at them, and off they ran. So like I said, these are pretty low quality troops. I've never been impressed with the Dutch Nassaus in this game. Even when I have to play them, it is a pain in the butt to get them to stand and not run away, because their troop quality is just pretty low. I really have to, you know, babysit them when I'm playing them. So now we're starting to get some fire going. We're moving our units to kind of semi-surround the garrison buildings here. And once I actually get all 4 units firing on these garrison buildings, you're going to see that they're going to break and run out of there pretty quickly. And then we'll be able to move in and occupy them. And once we do that, we will start getting points from the objective, which is actually outside the farmhouse. But for our purposes, it doesn't really matter. Just move into the farmhouse and you're going to be in range of the objective, so long as you put the leader in the left farmhouse. So there they go. As I said, almost as soon as we got into all these units firing at the farmhouses, they ran for their lives. I'm sure the Duke of Wellington is not happy with their performance. So we're going to start moving our units into the farmhouse here. Now they're still standing on the right side, in the right farmhouse. They're still in there, but they're going to run pretty quick soon, and we'll move in and occupy that building. And once we do, we'll be able to start firing on this unit that's actually in between the 2 buildings, and they will not stand there for long. So all you got to do is click on the inside of a building like that, and your troops will start walking in there. Like I said in the last episode, yes, they're going to walk through walls. It's just a visual abstraction. Pay no attention to it. I know it looks silly. It's, you know, it's meant to just simulate the troops are entering the building. It's not visually supposed to be, you know, super accurate. Yes, the sprites are walking through walls, but, you know, they're not physically walking through walls. That's just the representation. So we've run off a lot of these units now. You can see Pagot's brigade moving in from the left, our allies, and these Dutch Nassau's are, you know, proving what I think of them to always be true, and they are retreating, and we're going to occupy these farmhouses here. And like I said, all you got to do is click on the center of them, and your unit will walk in there, and then you can. Once they're in there, you'll see their flag appear above the fortress. Now these numbers that are above the fort, you'll see one says like 500 or one says 1,000. You can see kind of right here, it says 1,000. A lot of people confuse those for being like objectives or like victory points or something. Like if you move in here, you're gonna get 600 victory points. That's not true at all. All that is telling you how many men can actually fit inside the fort. So on this left one, you can fit 1,000 men inside the fort, and on the right one, you can fit 600 men in the fort. It's not any kind of victory point icon or anything. It's just telling you how many men actually can fit inside the fort. This is the victory. This is the objective. This is where we get our points from. So we have it now. Because we're inside the fort and we're within range of it. And here we see this is Pagotte's brigade moving in on our left here, and they're kind of like, I don't know what they're like trying to get into the fort with us, but the capacity of the fort is not enough to hold them, so they're gonna have to find something else to do. So he's just deploying his units outside of the garrison building here that we are now garrisoned, and very shortly he's going to turn on these Dutch Nassau troops and start attacking them, and we're going to hold these garrisons here. And we did that pretty quickly. We were about 11 minutes into the scenario, and we already have possession of the 2 farmhouses. So like I said, these Dutch, Nassau, German, whatever troops, you know, they're not really high quality troops, and it's not that hard to shoot them out of the buildings here. You know, and like I said, once you get all your units, you know, basically on the firing line and trying to shoot at the buildings, you know, they'll pretty much withdraw pretty quickly. And Pagotte's brigade here is now going after some of these Dutch Nassau troops that have previously retreated. And we're pretty much just going to sit here and watch Pagotte's brigade do their thing, because we have already accomplished our objective, and we're just going to sit here in this garrison building, in these farmhouses, pretty much for the rest of the scenario, just collecting points. You know, that's kind of all there is to it. So you can see Papelotte, one of Pagotte's units, is charging this Dutch Nassau regiment, and you know, he was actually charging the skirmisher unit, which is just dumb. Why would you do that? That's just a waste of a charge. So now he's going to form line, and they're going to shoot at these Dutch Nassau troops here. And he's basically got his whole brigade coming at these Dutch troops right here. So you know, I don't expect those Dutch troops to stand for very long. They're probably going to break. And there's some more go running away. And we're actually shooting at these troops from inside the garrison buildings here. You can actually see like smoke coming out of the buildings, and that's us firing at them. When you're inside a building, your formation doesn't really matter. You basically take on a kind of all-around facing inside the building, where you basically can just shoot on all fronts. So, you know, we're not actually in any kind of formation inside those buildings. We're just kind of facing all around, and you know, we can fire in any direction while we occupy these buildings. So Papelotte is getting set up here. He's now got he's got 2 units firing on the Dutch, and it looks like they're pulling back. The skirmishers are running. And we're racking up points here. We are almost at 500 points here. We're going to have it in 1 second here, and you're going to see the score jump up really high. You know, we were at 500 and we got 70 points right there. So we're now over the 500 point mark, and basically have won the scenario. So like I said, not that difficult a scenario. It's mainly about introducing you to how to attack a garrison building, and then hold it, and enter it and hold it. Stuff you'll need to know in later scenarios. And that's kind of the point of the scenario, is just to, so you get some practice at doing that. Attacking a garrison position, driving the enemy off, and then occupying it yourself. We have a lot of artillery over there on our left, but, as I've said, unfortunately, artillery at range in this game is not quite as that effective, so it looks more impressive than it really is. Got some British units back here and some cavalry. Now, normally in this scenario, all those units back there actually launched quite a counterattack on the French, basically on Pagotte's brigade, and usually they mess Papelotte up pretty good. But they don't really get going here, or they try to, but you're going to see at some point Papelotte pretty much go crazy and just start attacking everything in sight. And he kind of breaks up the Allied counterattack before it even comes off. So he was a true superhero in this scenario here. Some more Dutch troops falling back, and these guys have set up and are trying to shoot way too close to the fort. They're going to get creamed because they're way too close. They're getting hit in the flank by the other building on the other side there, and they're just way too close. So I don't expect them to stand for very long at all. I think they're going to break very quickly. And our artillery battery has 44 points. That's not a great score, but like I said, from that range, it's tough for artillery to get any score. So Pagotte's brigade has driven off the Dutch troops yet again, and over on the left there, some units of Violant's brigade, who are up on the ridge near the center of Wellington's line, they've decided to come off the ridge and try and help out their allies here, who are getting creamed by Pagotte's brigade. Unfortunately for them, Papelotte has pretty much finished messing up these guys and is now going to turn his attention on them. I'm sort of surprised that these guys are holding as long as they have. They are standing right in front of the fort and, getting shot at pretty heavily. And they're also getting shot in the flank by the people in that garrison. So, they may break and run, but they also come back. And there they go. Just as I was starting to have a little confidence in them, off they run. So we're pretty much just watching a show here, because we're not doing anything. We're in the garrison just, kind of occupying our objective and, getting our points. We've already pretty much won. We're almost near 1,000 points here. So we're just kind of watching the show here that Pagotte's brigade is putting on for us. And this is where he's about to start going nuts and just chasing after every battalion that he can, is in walking range of. I've never seen Papelotte be quite this aggressive when I played the scenario. This is one of the most aggressive I've ever seen him. Somebody lit a fire under his ass this morning. And we're just sitting here collecting our points. Look at this battalion just chasing after the they're all running. They want no more of this. Getting shot at from the forts. Now they've got, French battalions chasing after them. The hell with that. They're out of there. Well, these guys are going to try and put on one last stand here. But, oh, by the way, whenever you click on a unit in a fort and you have to select the unit, the game will momentarily pause. So as you can see, the game paused while I'm doing that. It'll unpause automatically when you actually go and select the unit, but just every time you select a unit in a fort like that, it'll pause the game temporarily. And all I'm doing is just checking my units and seeing, you know, what kind of shape they're in. And they're pretty tired from their initial fight, you know, but they're not in bad shape morale-wise. You know, I'm not worried about them running off somewhere. So it looks like this one of Pagotte's battalions that was chasing these guys has gotten tired of chasing them and are now heading back to the battle. And I have no idea why they're forming line that far away. I'm assuming they're trying to pick out a target here that they can actually get to before they run away. So yeah, let's try heading this way then. Now, Pagotte's brigade here is getting kind of spread out because he's just trying to. His units are trying to attack everything in sight, so they're getting a bit scattered. Normally that would be a bad thing, but no matter how scattered they seem to get, they just keep kind of going after these Dutch troops and getting the better of them. Now, I think on the right side here, I'm like pretty close to like the capacity limit of the fort, and it's making some of my units be in a constant move state as opposed to just occupying the fort. They are occupying the fort, but their game, like, because the capacity of the fort is kind of near the limit, it's keeping some of my units in a moving state. You can see right here it says moving. And I'm trying to resolve that because if they keep moving, it's going to deplete their fatigue. They're not actually moving. It's kind of a hiccup in the game when it comes to occupying forts that are near capacity. So sometimes the result of that can be that you just end up with units whose fatigue just gets drained away because they technically never stop moving while they're in the fort. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes it says moving and that's not the case. So really you don't want to go by this. But if you see a unit that says moving and it's occupying a fort or a garrison building, you want to keep an eye on their fatigue and make sure that it's, you know, not just going down like that, because that's kind of a bug. You know, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you can be in a fort and have it say moving, and that doesn't happen. Their fatigue will just kind of stay where it is. So it's just something to be aware of when you're occupying garrison buildings. That sometimes it doesn't always show your unit as not moving, and sometimes that can have a deleterious effect on your fatigue. If it is, I move them out of the fort and you know, either let them rest behind the fort or, you know, pull them, you know, far away until they can recover their fatigue. But just something to be aware of when occupying buildings, that sometimes happens. I've been able to identify why that happens or what the cause is, because it seems random. Because sometimes units will say moving inside a fort and their fatigue won't drop at all. And sometimes they'll say moving inside a fort and their fatigue will drop. And I can't see any kind of logical reason or explanation for why that sometimes happens. So it's just something to keep an eye on. Just anytime you'll see me repeatedly checking on my troops inside the fort. And that's basically what I'm looking for. I'm just seeing how their fatigue is doing and that it's not dropping more than it already is. And that's not happening here. These guys all have the same, you know, every time I click on it, the bug is not happening. But I have seen it happen before in playing scenarios. Or I must think it's happening to these guys because I'm pulling them out of the fort. But I don't think it was, actually. I think their fatigue was always on fine like that. So that may be why I'm pulling them out of the fort, is because I think their fatigue is being affected by the fact that that fort is kind of over capacity. Yeah, I'm not sure what I was doing there. I'm thinking that I was thinking the fatigue thing inside a fort was happening to that unit, and that's why I probably pulled them out. So as you can see, Pagotte's brigade is just putting on a show here. They're just running everybody off the field. And that was our artillery that actually did that. I saw, yeah, 79 points. They were at 44 the last time I clicked on them, so they obviously found their range on that unit and started pounding away on them and got them to run off. So good shooting, boys. And I'm still trying to figure out what's going on here. I think I should have just left them in the fort. I don't think they were actually being affected by the flood, but I thought they were. And it looks like I'm trying to move them into the other fort, which is a bad idea because I don't think that fort can handle another 531 men either. So I'm thinking I should have just left them where they were. But ultimately, all the enemy have been driven off in this area, so nothing I'm really doing is, you know, kind of mattering at this point. You know, I'm just kind of goofing around and, you know, switching positions on inside these fort houses. The battle is just nowhere near here. You know, Pagotte's brigade has driven everybody off. You know, certainly he's going to earn a commendation from the Emperor, and he's still going at it. But, you know, now the Allies have two more big units of Byland's brigade coming down to assist them. And, you know, Pagotte's brigade is actually pretty scattered at this point. And they've also got some cavalry coming now. The skirmishers very smartly immediately run off. And the infantry form square to protect themselves from the cavalry. So once the infantry unit forms square, the cavalry actually really can't do anything against them. You need infantry, you have to have infantry support cavalry to make that work. So they're going to form square here, and you know, the cavalry is going to basically be stuck there. You know, you have to have infantry support cavalry, or they can't attack, because then there's no reason why all the infantry can't just form square and kind of shoot at them, and the cavalry can't do anything. So yeah, that one square will be able to hold off against all that cavalry, because cavalry doesn't shoot, it's only a melee arm. You know, so they really can't do anything. So if you're going to use cavalry, and this was Marshal Ney's mistake at Waterloo, if you're going to use cavalry, always send infantry along with them, because if you send infantry along with them, then the enemy has to make a choice. Are we going to form square, which will inevitably be the choice, it's what you have to do, or, you know, to defend against the cavalry, but then they're going to get fired upon by infantry and not be able to effectively return as much fire as they would if they had been in line, or they're going to stay in line and get run down by the cavalry. There's no choice. You're going to form square. So, you know, that's why you have to send infantry along with the cavalry. So you force the enemy into square with the cavalry, and then the infantry can shoot at them and bring a lot more firepower against the square than the square can return fire with, because they only can shoot with whatever side of the square is facing the enemy. But in this instance, there's no infantry. You know, there's a couple of units right here. If they had, you know, committed these units, they could shoot this square up, and the square couldn't do anything about it because the cavalry would be keeping them in square. But, you know, they really don't do that. So it's starting to heat up over here. We've got now, Papelotte is kind of bringing his brigade back into force here to try to attack Byland's brigade, and there are a lot of troops coming. But we're also only 2 minutes away from the end of the scenario, so it's a little too late, too little too late, boys. You probably, Bylands Brigade would probably get the best of this situation because Papelotte has wandered a little too close to the Allied artillery on the ridge there, and he's been fighting for a while. His troops are probably getting tired at this point. And Bylands Brigade, even though they're all low-quality troops, there's a lot more of them. They're a lot bigger. Those are 600-700-man battalions. And so if this battle were going to continue, Papelotte would probably be in a lot of trouble. But since we're only a minute and 15 seconds away from the end of the scenario, it's not really a big deal. I do think they're going to get clipped by some canister fire from this Allied battery up on the hill there to the right. This unit moving in column forward, they're going to come into canister range. Yep, there it goes. Boom. I knew they were getting too close. Yep, that hurts. That hurts. They're losing 20, 30 men with each one of those shots. I can't believe they're actually trying to deploy there. This unit here, too. They're coming in range of the canister fire of this battery here. You can see every one of those booms drop a lot of men. Canister is nothing to play around with. If you're going to move into canister fire, it better be to charge that artillery battery and get them out of there. But you can't just stand here like this and let them pound away at you with impunity. Canister fire just does way too much damage. Now these guys are also moving into that range right there. Where these guns are really going to be able to put a hurting on them. But no problem. End of the scenario. And there we go. We got our major victory. We got 1,800 points. We only needed 500 for a major victory. It wasn't a big, for us, we took 146 casualties and we inflicted 300 casualties. It's not a big fight, really. It's just a quick skirmish. They run out of the forts and we occupy it. Not that much to it. Oh, yeah. So that was basically, the scenario crashed right at the end there. So that was basically it for that scenario. The game crashed kind of right at the end there. But since it was the end and we'd already won, whatever, keep using it. So, all right, that's it for this scenario, guys. And we'll be back next time with the Sunken Lane.